The following is a presentation of New Worker Radio. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily represent those of WZML, its staff, or management.
Hello, and welcome to New Worker News on WZML 92.9. My name is Manolis, bringing you national and international updates from a worker's perspective.
In today's episode, we start by discussing advancements in science. A vaccine against HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, was long considered unattainable. Decades of research have repeatedly brought disappointments. Most recently, last year, when the vaccine candidate from the U.S. pharmaceutical company, Johnson & Johnson, did not show the hoped-for effectiveness. But now, there is new hope. The new active ingredient, lenacapavir, has shown outstanding results in a crucial Phase 3 study. Lenacapavir is a so-called capsid inhibitor. That is, it is an active ingredient that disrupts the function of the cone-shaped protein shell around the HIV genome and inhibits the virus from multiplying. And this works, in contrast to most antiretroviral agents, in several phases of the life of the HIV virus. The latest data has revealed a real breakthrough, as the study, which was recently published in the New England Journal of Medicine, shows. A biannual injection of lenacapavir offers effective protection against HIV. Until now, people who want to protect themselves with HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis, in other words, PrEP tablets, have had to take the tablets, like Truvada, every day. Lenacapavir, on the other hand, is administered as an injection every 6 months. According to some experts, the efficiency of the new drug is comparable to conventional PrEP tablets. Both offer almost complete protection against HIV. Differences in the study results are due to the fact that in the tablet group of the previous studies, the tablets were not always taken consistently. The results of the recent study were so convincing that the evaluation was completed ahead of schedule. This makes it possible to make the drug available to all participants. Lenacapavir is now to be approved worldwide as an HIV prevention agent with a special focus on care in poorer countries. The drug is aimed specifically at people who have a high risk of infection and inhibits the life cycle of the virus in several stages of the infection. Experts see lenacapavir as a promising addition in the fight against HIV that could revolutionize prevention. But there's no need to be under any illusion that supply will be easily or that purely humanitarian logic will come into play here. The U.S. pharmaceutical company, Gilead, with sales of $27.08 billion in 2022, is charging a princely sum for the drug. The vaccine currently costs $40,000 per person per year. There are calculations by a researcher at the University of Liverpool who says that the production costs of the drug are so low that even with a profit margin of 30%, an annual price of just $40 would be justified. That is 1/1000th of the current asking price. The development of lenacapavir shows that decades of research are bearing fruit, and the real progress in the fight against HIV is possible. While a cure for the disease remains the ultimate goal, this new vaccine could play a crucial role in curbing the spread of the virus worldwide. In international news, on Black Friday, Amazon employees in 20 countries went on strike and organized protests against Amazon's company policies. They demanded better working conditions and concrete commitment to the fight against the climate crisis. Workers and activists across Europe are planning demonstrations against the online retail giant to disrupt its warehouses and prevent goods from reaching Amazon's parcel lockers on one of the busiest shopping days of the year. The protests, part of the global Make Amazon Pay campaign, also extend to Cyber Monday and aim to denounce the online giant's tax and labor practices. Originally known for the crowds of people lining up outside department stores in the U.S., Black Friday has increasingly moved online and gone global, fueled by Amazon itself, which this year is promoting festive discounts for 10 days from November 17th to November 27th. Thousands of employees and union representatives are taking part in the initiative, which is part of the international Make Amazon Pay campaign. Again, the protest will be extended to Cyber Monday and aim to denounce the company's labor and tax practices during one of the busiest shopping weekends of the year. Make Amazon Pay is a global campaign coordinated by Uni Global Union. Strikes and protests are to take place in more than 30 countries from Black Friday to Cyber Monday. Key demands include fair wages, respect for the right to union membership, greater fiscal transparency, and a serious commitment to environmental sustainability. Demonstrations will take place in several cities in the US, Germany, the UK, Turkey, Canada, India, Japan, Brazil, and many other countries. In Italy, for example, with trade unions at the forefront, the CGIL called for a strike on Black Friday at the Castel San Giovanni warehouse. In Germany, Amazon's second largest sales market in 2022, workers at the 5 fulfillment centers in Bad Hersfeld, Dortmund, Koblenz, Leipzig, and Rheinberg will strike for 24 hours to demand a collective agreement, according to the Verdi union. According to the GMB union, more than 1,000 workers at the Amazon warehouse in Coventry, England, are on strike as part of a long-running wage dispute. The union members are also organizing a demonstration in front of Amazon headquarters in London. Amazon's lockers are also affected. Many Amazon customers use the lockers, which are located at train stations, supermarket parking lots, and street corners, to collect their orders. In France, the anti-globalization organization ATTIC is calling on activists to cover them with posters and tape to prevent delivery workers and customers from opening them. The Spanish union, CCOO, has called on Amazon warehouse and delivery workers to organize a 1-hour strike per shift on Cyber Monday, the last day of Amazon's 10-day special sale. In other international news, reactions from Canada, Mexico, and China to Trump's planned tariffs continue. By warning of serious turmoil in the economies of all 4 countries, Canada, Mexico, and China responded to the announcement by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to impose comprehensive tariffs on the USA's 3 largest trading partners. Trump announced that he would impose tariffs of 25% on products from Mexico and Canada and another 10% on products from China. He said that the tariffs were an attempt to, quote, curb drugs and illegal immigration, end quote. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum told reporters that neither the threats nor the tariffs would solve the immigration phenomenon or drug use in the United States. Reading a letter she planned to send to Trump, Sheinbaum also warned that Mexico would impose its own tariffs on U.S. imports in retaliation, which would jeopardize joint operations. She said, one tariff will be followed by another, and so on, until we jeopardize our joint operations. She also said her country had taken measures to combat illegal immigration to the United States, and caravans of migrants are no longer arriving at the border. Sheinbaum, who took office last month, pointed out that U.S. automakers make some of their parts in Mexico and Canada. She also said if tariffs are increased, who is that going to hit? General Motors. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told the House of Commons in Ottawa that the idea of war with the United States is not what anyone wants. He urged them not to panic and to cooperate. Canadian provincial leaders proposed imposing their own tariffs on the United States. The things we sell to the United States are the things they really need, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland said Tuesday. We sell them oil, we sell them electricity, we sell them important minerals and metals. America's northern neighbor supplied about $437 billion in U.S. imports in 2022 and was the largest market for U.S. exports that year. According to U.S. data, Canadian ships about 75% of its total exports to the United States. On the other hand, Chinese embassy spokesman in Washington, Liu Penghu, told the BBC that economic and trade cooperation between China and the U.S. is mutually beneficial. He denied that China allows the smuggling of chemicals used to make illegal drugs, including fentanyl, into the United States. President Joe Biden left in place the tariffs on China that Trump imposed during his first term and added several more. Currently, the majority of sales between the two countries are subject to tariffs. 66.4% of U.S. imports from China and 58.3% of Chinese imports from the United States. In more international news, a resolution calling for a ceasefire in the Middle East has once again failed in the United Nations Security Council due to objections from the United States, which does not want to end the war and genocide in Israel's interests. Once again, the United States has abused its veto power as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council which would thwart a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. In doing so, the U.S. administration has once again proven itself to be the closest collaborator of the Israeli Netanyahu regime and its war of extermination against the Palestinians. After weeks of deliberations, the 10 elected members of the UN Security Council, Algeria, Ecuador, Guyana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, Switzerland, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and South Korea, presented a resolution calling for an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire which must be respected by all parties. At the same time, the wishes of the USA and Israel were taken into account, and the demand for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages was anchored in the draft resolution. Nevertheless, the United States rejected the resolution, which is binding under international law, which was also supported by close allies such as Japan and South Korea. This shows two things. All of the U.S. administration's commitment to peace are only empty phrases, not to say blatant lies. Washington supports Israel in its war of annihilation and genocide to the bitter end, whatever that may look like under Republican or Democrat governments. Tens of thousands of dead civilians play no role in this, nor do the Israeli hostages. At the same time, it is becoming clear once again that the USA is isolating itself more and more, including diplomatically. Even the permanent members of the Security Council, Great Britain and France, or NATO members such as Slovenia, cannot afford to support the U.S. position. The vast majority of the world community has long since turned away from the USA anyway. Its influence is now only based solely on the dollar and military power. In what is known as the so-called principle of opportunity for a more stable Middle East, the United States is also launching the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire agreement, which serves the interests of the killer state and the Euro-Atlantic imperialist designs in the Middle East, with conditions that can lead at any moment to more military escalation in the region. In the wake of the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire agreement, outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden has announced that he will pursue another peace agreement, which is merely a gun to the temple deal, this time in Gaza. He said his country in the coming days will make another effort with Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, Israel, and others for a ceasefire in Gaza, aiming to release the prisoners held in Gaza and ending the war without Hamas in power. U.S. National Secretary Advisor Jake Sullivan said that Biden will immediately order his emissaries to contact the above-mentioned countries, while adding that the U.S. sees a principle of opportunity for a more stable Middle East. In the context of this so-called stability, the Biden administration is preparing to stuff Israel with another military package worth $680 million. The package, first reported by the Financial Times, includes thousands of joint direct attack munitions and hundreds of small-diameter bombs. It follows the sale in August of fighter jets and other military equipment to Israel worth a total of $20 billion. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has pointed out that one of the reasons for the ceasefire in Lebanon was to replenish Israel's weapons stockpile. The U.S. and France will guarantee that the ceasefire agreement will be implemented in full, Joe Biden and his French counterpart, Macron, said in a joint statement. The latter yesterday called on the Lebanese political leadership to organize without delay the election of a new president of the republic. In other news in the Biden administration, at the end of his term in office, Biden is once again escalating the war between Russia and NATO. Biden, who already orchestrated the U.S. escalation in Ukraine as Barack Obama's vice president, remains true to his role to the end. Russia threatened weeks ago that there would be serious consequences if Western missiles attacked the Russian heartland. Of course, the international warmongering media is cheering over the news that the outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden has allegedly given permission for Kiev to use U.S. missiles to attack targets in the Russian heartland. The initial authorization is said to be for missile attacks on Russian and Korean troops in the Russian region of Kursk, although no one has ever seen the soldiers of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea at the front except for the Ukrainians. Ukrainian propaganda claims that they are Koreans in Russian uniforms who have been given fake identities as members of the Russian Buryat ethnic group. So it could just as well be that the Ukrainians made up the story to escalate the war and that they are not Koreans, but actually Buryats. The excitement of the Ukrainian leadership is completely absurd when one considers that official and unofficial NATO military personnel have been in Ukraine and involved in the fighting since the beginning of the war, and even before that. Russia had warned weeks ago that the release of Western weapon systems for use on internationally recognized Russian territory would mean a dangerous escalation of the war. Russian President Vladimir Putin said in a TV interview that the use of Western long-range weapons made by the US, Britain, France, or Germany would be seen as direct participation in the war by the respective manufacturing country, as it is not technically possible without the involvement of specialists from NATO countries. Even if Russia does not respond militarily to these provocations, Biden's move will serve to poison the talks that are just beginning between various countries, including Western ones, and Russia on a peace solution. Peace talks are thus becoming more distant, which also benefits the intentions of the Ukrainian Zelensky regime. The ones who suffer are the soldiers and the working class of Ukraine and Russia. The ones who profit are the shareholders of the military-industrial complex in the USA and Europe.
We'll be right back with more of New Worker News here on 92.9 FM WZML. But I want to remind you that every day throughout this country, workers are subjected to injustices and humiliation at the hands of the capitalists, from unpaid wages to mass layoffs. So we at New Worker understand the tyranny that the workplace is for workers. This is why we fight to expose these injustices. Only through militant organization of the working class can we stand toe-to-toe against the bosses. So this is why we want to hear from you, the listener. Are you having issues at work? Bosses cutting your hours or wages? Are you or your fellow workers' safety being thrown out of the window in the name of ever-increasing profit? Well, you are not alone. So reach out to us to tell your story. You can anonymously send an email or even a voice memo to cwpusa@protonmail.com. Again, that is cwpusa@protonmail.com. And check us out online at newworker.us. And now back to New Worker Radio, only here on 92.9 FM WZML.
In local Pennsylvania news, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, SEPTA, has approved a fare increase of 7.5% by December 1st as the transit service faces a massive budget deficit of $240 million. For now, additional increases of 21.5% that were planned for January 1st have been postponed. SEPTA provides public transportation into and within Philadelphia, as well as serving the surrounding Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montgomery counties. SEPTA is the sixth largest transit agency in the United States in terms of weekly ridership of its complex systems of subways, buses, trolleys, and commuter rail lines. Roughly 650,000 Philadelphians ride SEPTA every day. Over the past months, SEPTA has warned that further price hikes are on the horizon, with fares seeing an increase of up to 30% by 2025. This happens in the context of a further cut in services, which will see many routes being eliminated, fewer trains, and shortened routes. When asked about layoffs, the agency responded that nothing is off the table. The problems facing SEPTA are nothing new under the sun. Historically, SEPTA has been the target of business groups and private interests, resulting in its structural, funding, management, and labor issues. Everything that SEPTA has faced are always passed on to the workers and people, resulting in protest over fare increases and the valiant strikes of the Transit Workers Union Local 234 from its first strike in 1971 and its latest strike in 2016. All these problems were even evident back in early 2000s when the agency threatened eliminating weekend services, increasing fares, and firing 16% of its employees if the state legislature could not increase funding. Even in October of 2023, a strike was threatened if contract negotiations over a one-year deal, including wage increases, bonuses, and pension benefits, were not agreed to. In its previous session, the Pennsylvania General Assembly could not pass increased funding to SEPTA, with all proposals blocked under the pretext given by the Republican members that they could not support transit funding increases without simultaneous funding increases for improvements in roads, bridges, and airports. According to Joe Pittman, Republican Senate Majority Leader, the focus remains on, quote, not growing Pennsylvania government. What relation does this have to stopping transit increases? Pittman, who won his election to the Pennsylvania Senate, who had notable contributions from big business groups surrounding coal, fracking, insurance, banking, healthcare, car dealers, and horse racing. it becomes clear that behind the opposition to public transportation, increases in fares, and layoffs, we find the profit of these business groups, bankers, and industrialists. Public transportation is strangled by the glory of the profits of car dealerships, oil companies, coal companies, and so on. Public transit is a fertile ground to feed capital with profits. Further, the planning for SEPTA, in contrast to reasons which claim that its struggles are a result of inadequacy on the part of the government, the reasons are purely political. That is, they do not and will not meet the needs of the people. In fact, planning is carried out on the basis of serving capital. That is, the trade in automobiles, which yields profits to capital through the purchase of automobiles and through the purchase of fuel for transportation, simultaneously yielding profits to the government of capital through the taxes associated with the purchase and use of automobiles such as registration fees, license plates, insurance premiums, road taxes, and so on. The plans of the government of Pennsylvania surrounding SEPTA are part of its anti-people policy, which restricts the rights of movement, making it a privilege only for the few. They lay the carpet for privatization and the dissolution of public transport. Philadelphia, which is one of the poorest of America's largest city and has one of the highest rates of poverty, SEPTA fares as a portion of income are higher than those in comparable cities. With jobs dispersed throughout the city and relatively low paying, the workers in the most vulnerable sections of Philly will have their incomes further shredded by the upcoming fare increase. They are the ones who will pay the ultimate price. Public transportation is a social good, a social right, and it must be provided to the people. It cannot be subjected to the logic of the free market economic criteria. The workers need public mass transport at the service of people's interests. The characteristics and conditions for a proper transport are the density of routes in space and time, speed, comfort, safety, reliability of routes, a single and cheap ticket, and the free transport of workers to and from their jobs.
You've been listening to New Worker News on 92.9 FM WZML, your home for local, national, and international news, all from a working class perspective. New Worker News is the official organ of the Communist Workers Platform. If you're a worker, we would like to hear from you. You can reach us at cwpusa@protonmail.com. Again, that's cwpusa@protonmail.com. If you would like more news from a worker's point of view, visit us at newworker.us. You can find weekly articles on events happening all over the country and internationally. If you've enjoyed the program and wish to see more working class reporting, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/newworker. And thank you for listening to New Worker News on 92.9 FM WZML.